that we are part of this divinity, part of this life, and that we cannot move away from that. He wrote, if you think of life as always bringing to you everything you need, you will have formed a partnership with the invisible, which will prosper you in everything you do. If you think of the organs and functions of your physical being as activities of life, that automatically you will be healed. The spiritual gifts which people have so earnestly sought after out of anguish of their incompleteness are not something which a reluctant deity has withheld from them. Quite the reverse. They are something which man in his ignorance has withheld from himself. Life is not vindictive. Now, I think all of us should really be grateful to hear that God's not vindictive. See, if I start to own that, then my fear of punishment, which is what creates a fear of passing into the next expression of life, my fear of punishment goes away. I start to recognize there's not a God up there that is like a personality going, you make me happy, you on the other hand tick me off. You know, that's not it. There's not that personalness, and yet there is an infinite love that is connecting us to this divinity. So life is not vindictive. It is not withholding anything from you. Now that's another one we ought to get, because I know that oftentimes we think, well, if I just please God, you know, if I just do this right, or if I just do that right, if I just please God, that what appears to be lacking in my life will come in. And I'm saying that's not how it works. It's not about that. It's about aligning and creating this partnership so that I know what is the truth of the world that I live in. And so he says, it is not even waiting until you're good enough to receive it. Don't you like that? Boy, what a relief. You know, because if we had to be a certain type of good, you know, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, okay? Because I would like to always think that I was really, you know, in line with that, but I'm not. I have my moments, just like everyone else. And so the beautiful thing is we don't even have to hit some standard of good. What we want to know is that we're part of this divinity, that we're not having to wait. He says, life is love, beauty, and wisdom, as well as energy and imagination. You will be able to use its power in exact proportion as you embody its essence. And so this is where we start to go after what my dear friend Lloyd Tupper used to call the whole enchilada. Because he says, you know, you can pray. I used to love this. I got this, I was listening to tapes that I had. In 1984, he did this series of talks at Asilomar, our summer conference, and it was a series of talks on Thomas Troward, and where I fell in love with Thomas Troward in 1984. And he said, you know, you can pray for the rent on the 1st. Now, since we're on the 28th, 29th, whatever today's date is, if we wanted to pray for the rent on the 1st, because we were nervous about that, then next month on the rent on the 1st, I'm going to have to pray again, aren't I? You know, it's like I'm going to be consistently going, well, I'm just getting enough. Why? Because I'm asking for just enough and nothing more. So I'm simply saying, here's the emergency that's got my attention. I'm going to pray for that right in this moment, and that way I can transform, and then sure enough it comes through. Well, you know, that's really nice, and it's great proof. But if you want the whole enchilada, you no longer pray for the rent on the 1st. You begin to pray to know that God is my supply, that God is my sufficiency, that I am always supported. And when you know that, then you don't have to be worried about the rent on the 1st or the car payment, or do I have enough money to buy an additional dress or whatever, you know, for me. The guys might not identify with that. I don't know, it's a bad day for humor. Okay, but you know, it's like, You're your best. But you know, it's one of those where you're no longer saying, only fill where I see the limitation. But you are now identifying with the very spirit of life that supports you entirely and completely in all areas. Now, that means that since vitality is life, it's an essence of life, since life itself is a vibration, then what is going on in our bodies at all times is that vibration. And as I'm willing to attune to that and know that life is moving through me and that every single one of my organs, I don't have to tell my heart to beat. It does it. Thank God. I would hate to have to have my attention there all the time, wouldn't you? You know, and it's like I don't have to correct or tell my body how to function. It knows how to do that. And so what I do is instead begin to identify myself with the very vitality that is life. And that may lead me to things. Now that might lead me to a different, to notice what doesn't agree with my body. I might put aside, I haven't done this yet, I might put aside sugar. I might get there. We're not there yet. I notice as I'm thinking about the plum cobbler that I made for us last night. But you know, it's like I might say, well, gee whiz, I'll have a smaller portion. You know, I might decide that there is something that agrees with me more than something else. And I might decide to look at what is the amount that I eat and what's sufficient. If I'm not coming from lack, I would perhaps look at that. Maybe I go back to the gym, you know. I said, thank you, Monica Watson, my gym partner back there. She called me up the other day and said, Chris, this is the thing. If you would know that you were fully surrounded by all of the people that love you and are willing to get you involved in life, then you don't have to worry about friends. Monica calls me and we found out that we belong to the same gym. I've belonged to this gym for 6 years. Monica got me there. You know, she called me up, she said, I'm going to the gym this morning, you know, do you want to go? I said, I'm on it. You know, jumped out of bed, threw on my clothes, got over to the gym, and it's been fabulous. So this is how, if we affirm, life fully supports me. The friendships that support us show up. The life that supports us shows up. The opportunity that supports us shows up. And we begin to transform who and what we are. You know, Carol Bliss gave me some information about eating that I took in and, you know, read and looked at. See how life is? If you're affirming vitality, if you're affirming wholeness, you don't have to go out and search for it. It starts coming to you. Isn't that marvelous? Don't you love that? You don't have to try and know everything. You don't have to fix everything, because God knows everything and brings you what you need and gives you the signs and the indications of what it is, simply because you're fully supported. And when you know that, you start to transform the fears that we have, you know, that are part of the race consciousness, that are the things that people tell us and we go, oh yeah, you know, I never thought about that, but maybe I need to be worried about that. You know, we move from tragedy, and we don't get distracted. We find ways to help, but we don't get distracted by the tragedies of the world. One of the things that really hit me when I picked this book up, which is this thing called life, I thought this was so true, because there's always something happening in the world. Now we happen to notice that. Tornadoes in my mother's hometown, you know, Joplin, Missouri. We notice these things. And we begin to see, you know, gee, there's, you know, that's happening and that's happening, and wars. And Holmes said, the world is crying out for God. lost in the canyons of disillusionment, where the trail runs out and stops against granite barriers that wall us in, we cry, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" When war devastates the land, and trembling we stand at the mouth of hell, listening to the screaming of airplanes, the wails of the wounded, and the terror of the headlines, we cry, "Why hast thou forsaken me?" I thought, when did you write this book? Was it today? It was 1943. Because this is the nature of the world. In our ignorance, we don't know how to interpret these events. And we forget who we are. We forget who we are. And we believe we've been forsaken. And yet we have not. And the best thing that we can do is